Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I'm pushing the button and someone sent me a message. Anyway, hello everyone. Welcome to Blue Sunday. I'll get that right one day. My name is Joseph Lutzer. Joining me tonight, as per usual, Carlton Life member Vince Lochisano. Warm welcome to you, Vince. How are you this evening?
Thanks, Joe. I'm very well. Fresh from a trip to Mildura this weekend, and only just got back about half an hour ago. So nice to be back, and good evening to all of our viewers around Melbourne, around Victoria, and around the country.
Yeah,
and even
the world.
overseas.
Yeah, I'm going to have to tell people to stop sending me messages at around 4:30 because I'm hitting it and I can't hit it. And it comes up, someone sent me a message. But anyway, okay. Right. As you know, viewers, we are a YouTube show, Facebook show. So we're on the Jumper Punch channel, and we're looking predominantly at the Carlton Football Club and the games. But we'll have a quick overview of the other games. So, if you'd like to take part in the show, we encourage your involvement, participation. So on your comment section, please feel free to send some comments. I'm going to try and put up as many as possible, but I'm not going to put up hi, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Please try not to put expletives up. I'm not that fussed because I use them a lot. It's just that the people at Facebook and YouTube don't like the F word. Every now and then they send you something like that. So, look, we want to get as many as your comments and stuff up. So, Vince, you're up in Mildura. Please explain why.
Oh, well, as a matter of fact, I hosted a function last night, Joe, up at a lovely establishment called Larry's Prosciutteria. Do you know what a prosciutteria is?
I reckon they'd sell hamburgers.
No. Quite a big premises, actually. It's more like a warehouse. It's been converted into a massive restaurant and function centre. And they've got, wood-fired pizzas, and they've got a big bar there. They've got all sorts of things in there. And a big function was held last night to raise money for Myeloma Australia, which, of course, is the charity that raises money to bring awareness and also to provide valuable funds for research into myeloma. That's the blood disease, of course, the cancer of the blood. That's the one that Sandy Roberts has just recently been diagnosed with as well. So Larry, who the premises is named after, was the father of this family, the Piscineri family up there in Mildura, and he died very suddenly and very quickly once being diagnosed within about 6 months. So the eldest son, Cozzy, and his family have taken it upon themselves to build this wonderful establishment and also to hold this fundraiser. And it was a terrific night. I hosted it, and Ange and Cuda, Anthony Koutafidis and Ange Christou were up there. I interviewed them up on stage, and we had some fabulous entertainment. A terrific Elvis impersonator, Jack Gatto. I don't know if you've heard of him. And Tony Lewis, who's the Jerry Lewis impersonator. He was also there to provide some entertainment. So it was a great night anyway.
I must admit,
that was last night up in Mildura.
I must admit, being an Italian, I've never heard of a prosciutteria. But anyway, I've heard of a pizzeria, but
it's
never
technically a place that sells prosciutto. So anyway, if you haven't had prosciutto before, there's something wrong with you if you're Italian.
I've gathered that. Okay, so Vince, tonight we're going to be a little bit different. Because, we'll start the same way. We'll go through the scores, and then we'll get our regular special comments man, Peter Brown, 1979 Premiership player, and also Steve Khatib. And I thought what we would do is that we'd probably talk about a few of the issues that are facing Carlton. There's a few already that you can see up. People are saying Voss needs to be sacked, can't coach, shit game plan, lost the players, sack him. Then we've got Sammy saying very confused with what's going on, as I think we all are, Sammy. So, Vince, let's get to the games, and I might change the run sheet a bit. I might bring Steve in a bit earlier because no problem. We'll see I don't want him sitting out in the back on his own for
too long.
So We won't start with Friday night.
We'll dissect the game a bit, though, obviously.
Yes, but let's see what happened before. So,
of course,
the first game we're going to go through, go.
Okay. Well, the first game, other than ours on Friday night, was, of course, the match on Saturday between St Kilda and Hawthorn. And my word, what a turn up for the books here. Hawthorn 12-16, 88. Got over the top of St Kilda by kicking 5-1 in that last quarter, 12-6, 78. And a massive game by James Sicily. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the first of many. That was the first of many upsets.
Next.
The next one was another upset. In fact, I think Fremantle's got the wood over Melbourne here in Melbourne at the MCG. I think they've won probably 3 in a row here against the Demons, if I'm not mistaken. But Fremantle 12-7, 79, good kicking, defeated Melbourne 10-12, 72 by 7 points. And that's Melbourne's second consecutive defeat. And we play them next Friday night.
Of course. So then, after that, I watched this game as well. Another great game.
Here's another upset. I don't think too many people would have expected this result. The GWS Giants in Toby Green's 200th game kicked 12-9, 81 to defeat Geelong on their home ground, 10-14, 74 at Cardinia Park.
Next, we had
another upset. And probably this one was considered an upset as well. Gold Coast Suns, goodness me. Up in Darwin, of course, the TIO Stadium, 13-6, 84, defeating the Western Bulldogs, 11-11, 77. Another close result, but another result that you'd consider to be an upset. This was the first one that wasn't an upset. I don't think too many people would have tipped West Coast to do anything. They're just all at sea at the moment. Essendon 14-12, 96 to West Coast 6-10, 46. A big 50-point win to the Bombers, and that's their second win on the trot.
I think,
and they play North Melbourne next week, so they might even get 3 on the trot.
I think West Coast are in more trouble than Carlton, but anyway, then be the others.
Well,
then we had
clearly
today.
They are. I think they're more trouble than anyone. Then today, of course, the first game was a tight game, and looked like maybe the Tigers could pull off a win for their new stand-in coach, because that's what often happens when you've got interim coaches. All of a sudden they get off to a flying start. But Andrew McQualter's debut didn't quite go to plan for him. Richmond 9-13, 67, defeated by the Port Adelaide Power 10-17, 77. Both teams being pretty inaccurate in front of goals, but Port held on, and they're flying in second position on the ladder at the moment.
Then we had
Collingwood in Steel Side Bottom's 300th game, and I think Mason Cox's 100th, defeating North Melbourne pretty comfortably. Didn't get to any great heights, but nevertheless, 16-9, 105, defeating North Melbourne 10-10, 70, who came back with a pretty good 6-goal last quarter to reduce the margin, but Collingwood were never threatened, and it was a big win to them. And unfortunately, I think for Steel Side Bottom, he injured himself.
He's done his knee. He's done his knee in the first 10 minutes.
That's right. Exactly. So not the 300th game he would have been dreaming about. And the final result here, only just. I can report to you that the full-time score, that was just before we went to air, so that's all you could do, Joe. But now the full-time score between Adelaide and Brisbane is another upset. 14-11, 95, in fact, to the Adelaide Crows, defeating Brisbane 10-18, 78. So quite a lot of teams in the top 8 have lost this weekend. It makes for an interesting ladder, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, let's go. That's the game that we're going to talk through on that happened Friday night. Just give us quickly the scores.
Oh, well, of course, scores quickly with the Sydney Swans versus Carlton game. And, of course, the Sydney Swans running away with it, kicking 3-0 in the last quarter, 11-11, 77. Carlton only 6 goals, 15 points, 51. A 26-point victory to the Sydney Swans, who were somewhere between 8 and 11 players from their best 23, depending on how you grade them. Certainly a minimum of 8 of their best 23 out of the side, and yet they still won. So big problems for us.
that brings us to the ladder, Vince. So the top 8 is. Do you want to do it?
From the top, Collingwood on 10 wins. On top of the ladder, 1 game clear of Port Adelaide, who are on 9 wins, 36 points. Another game clear of Brisbane, who are on 8 wins. That's 32 points. And then, of course, 3 teams filling 4th, 5th and 6th on 7 wins and 28 points, being Melbourne, St Kilda and Western Bulldogs in that order on percentage. Then you've got another 3 teams on 6 wins from 11 games, 24 points, separated only on percentage. Adelaide has now gone ahead of Essendon with that win over Brisbane, and they are in the 8. And just outside the 8 is Fremantle, also on 24 points. Then you've got 3 teams on 20, being Geelong, Sydney and Gold Coast. And then, of course, we've got half a game to Carlton, who are sitting in the bottom third of the ladder in 13th position, 4.5 wins on 18 points. Then GWS on 4 wins, Richmond on 3.5 wins on 14 points, Hawthorn on 3 wins, 12 points, North Melbourne on 2 wins, which is 8 points in second last, and bringing up the tail is the West Coast Eagles on only 1 win. That's 4 points and a miserly percentage of only 54.8. So that's the ladder.
So Vince, some of the stats, some of the games on the weekend, the results went for us, if you believe it or not. And
a little
that
bit.
Means we're only 6 points up, but we're not playing well. But anyway.
No.
So now
we've lost what? 6 out of our last 7 games, Joe. Since round 4, when we beat North Melbourne on Good Friday, we've lost 6 of our next 7 games. The only one being West Coast over there in Perth, which was a big 100-point win. But then again, sides like Hawthorn are beating them by over 100 points too. So you can't really take any notice of that. We're not in good form. No.
So that brings us to the time of the show where I introduce the 1979 Premiership player, Mr. Peter Brown. How are you tonight, Peter?
Good evening, Joe. Good evening, Vince. Good evening, viewers.
Good evening, Brownie. Great to see you.
Good to see you guys too. I wish it was under better circumstances, but it's not.
We can't have everything. Hey, Pete, as we usually do, before we get you to comment, I'm just going to throw up some quick stats. And I've taken Vince's suggestion on board. I've put the little symbols up the top so you can see who's who.
Yes,
so you've
Sydney Swans on the left.
Yeah, it's hard for me to read, but you've got disposals. Swans are in front, kicks in front, handballs, funny enough, even, and inside 50s, we actually beat them. I don't believe this disposal efficiency, 73 to 72%. And even the efficiency inside 50, I mean, that just shows you how poor both teams were in the 30s. I mean, that is just woeful. Stoppages, Pitane, who signed a 4-year deal. We can talk about that later with Peter when we go through some of the issues at the club. We won the hit-outs. We won the clearances, but we didn't win the centre clearances. And we won the stoppage clearances, which is funny. Won contested possessions, lost uncontested possessions, more turnovers. These are all just stats. As I always say, the one stat that counts is the score. Marks, we actually hit the front sometime. I don't know when. I must have missed that 1 minute or 17 minutes. Okay. Intercepts. I think that's it. I don't know. And
Joe, you're going. Sorry.
Go on. Yeah.
No, what I was going to say is the one glaring stat that I've got in front of me. Maybe I'm looking at a different set of figures to you, but the one glaring stat that really tells the tale of this game is shooting accuracy. Sydney Swans were 50%, 11 goals and 11 behinds. And Carlton was 6 goals, 15, and that's only 29% accuracy. And we also, of course, kicked a couple out of bounds on the full. So it was probably even worse than that.
Yeah,
that's just based on the actual scoring shots rather than taking into account the non-scoring shots. There were a couple of kicks for goal that were just miles off, not even close to being a point. And I think that told the story more than any other stat, because if those kicks had been goals, I think we would have been right in the game for a long, long way.
Yeah,
maybe
I
even
agree. Yeah, but we didn't deserve to win it, right?
They got a bit of a run in that last quarter where they kicked 3 goals in fairly quick time when the scores were almost even, and that's what ended up winning them the game. And we just had no answer. We didn't even kick a goal in the last quarter. But I just feel that some of those shots in the second and third quarters, if they had been goals instead of, missed kicks and kicks around the corner and kicks straight out of bounds on the full. I mean, if they had been goals, I think we would be talking about a victory here right now. That's my personal view.
I think
what you would find is that our efficiency in front of goal is the thing that comes under question. We can get the ball there sometimes badly, but I've said this for a couple of weeks, so I don't want to repeat myself, but it's fairly evident that you pay a lot of money for guys that are supposed to do one job and one job only, and that's kick a goal. And if you're not kicking goals, then you're not earning your money. So ridiculously, and it all comes down to their routine, being able to line up correctly, being able to kick through the ball, being able to get a target behind the posts, etc., etc. We know all the all the ins and outs of what they need to do. The reality is that they don't know it, and as a result of that, we're not scoring goals.
Well, Peter, as you well know, and I was watching Adelaide and Brisbane. I don't know if the viewers were watching it, but in the third quarter, Brisbane kicked 1 goal 9, right? Mm-hmm. And Adelaide kicked 3 goals. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember who the commentator was, because I think it was Jonathan Brown, right? And he said, the one thing that people always forget about is scoreboard pressure. And that's why, to me, the only stat, I put those stats up because I know a lot of the younger viewers like them. But to me, the only stat that counts is how many goals you kick, and not points, goals. Because as Vince says, if imagine Brisbane had to kick 9 goals 1 instead of 1 goals 9. And I'm telling you now, not one of them was rushed. They're all shots at goal. I think one was touched on the line. And they're all gettable. All gettable, right? Yeah. And Brad Johnson, I don't know if you've been listening to a lot of the TV over the weekend, but it's starting to rain here in Bangkok, so there's not a lot I can do. Brad Johnson, who's not even a goal kicker, he said, "Do you know, I could fix Harry McKay's problem in 1 minute." And the guy goes, "What?" And he goes, "Have a look at how he plants his foot when he kicks." He goes, "It's crooked," and he goes, "And we all know that is your guiding foot. So if your foot's out to the left, you're going to kick it out to the left. If your foot, it's like golf." And Steve can tell us about golf. We'll bring Steve in a minute. But where you aim is where you go. I mean, I'm not a golfer, but I know that. I'm a shocking golfer. But I know because I look at the left and that's where the ball goes. So it's actually funny. One of the guys that I would have suggested has a better action is Charlie, and yet on a couple of occasions when he lined up in front of goal and where he was actually facing was where he kicked it, and he kicked a point. So it's a technique. It's being able to get your routine correct. It's being able to run straight. There's 2 in the league that I believe has an excellent run up and approach. One of them's Lynch from Richmond, and the other one is Jeremy Cameron from, and he's a left footer
from Geelong.
Yeah, and usually left footers have a tendency to swing, whereas Cameron seems to be fairly straight.
John, I know Brad Johnson kicked 500 goals, but he wasn't a forward. He was more of a wing sort of utility. And therein lies another one of our problem. How many of our midfielders kick goals this week? It's the same every week. And if that Motlop tries to take Mark of the Year one more time instead of crumbing, I just don't get it. But anyway, so Pete, same mistake, same different week.
Yeah, look, they're dishing it up week after week, aren't they? And as a result of that, we're now 11, 12, nearly 12 games into the season, and there hasn't been any changes. Interestingly enough, this week coming, because of forced injuries, I will believe that there will be some changes made which could potentially have a different outcome. Hopefully they use their brains and bring Paddy Dowd in, and because the midfield is woeful just at present. We're just not getting enough drive out of there at all. They're not putting enough, as indicated, scoreboard pressure. If you go back to the Adelaide game, without repeating myself and without going over old ground, 8 goals in the first quarter, 5 of them from midfield. So you need to get that sort of pressure mounted before you can actually have your forwards on song. And all that did prove to me on Friday night that when Harry and Charlie don't kick goals, no one else is able to. Another score line of 6 goals.
Peter, well, I noticed on Friday night Charlie was doing these spearing low kicks. What was all that about?
Well,
was he trying to pass it, or I don't get it? He even kicked into the man on the mark from 20 metres out.
Yeah, 30 metres out. He kicked into the man on the mark. He was too close to the man.
He was a bit lucky that Motlop cleaned it up and actually kicked the goal within about 10 seconds after that. But he was very lucky that Motlop was there to clean up after his mess.
Absolutely. There shouldn't be any excuses for that. And you hit the nail on the head earlier, Joe. One of the things that bloody stands out to me in all of our games is the fact that we just cannot hit a target.
No.
Regardless of whether it's around the ground, whether it's in the back line, whether it's in the forward line, we just struggle to hit a target, either by hand or foot. And that is a skill error. And
who should be responsible? Who should be responsible and accountable for that level of skill? Is it the players themselves, or is it the coaches, or is it Michael Voss, or who is it?
Squarely coaching. Even though the players have got to take some responsibility for themselves, it's squarely coaching. We discussed this last week about the fact that they're only allowed to kick a certain amount of kicks at training before their leg gets sore or something like that, and they've got to go off and all of that sort of crap.
Makes you wonder.
As you know, guys, I did the jumper punch on Monday with Alex Marcoux, and one of the players that could hit a player at 60 metres away at full tilt was Bruce Dool. He was an absolute master at it. And if he had the ball in his hands, all you had to do was make sure that you were in front of your opponent and he would put it out in front of you. Now, that's one of the things that we don't do going into the forward line. There were some games on the weekend that showed it very clearly that they were kicking to an advantage. So they were kicking to the side of where the player is standing rather than putting it into just a packed situation. Well, all that does is it allows you to put your body between your opponent and where the ball's going to land. So, and that's one thing that is a skill that's got to be taught to our guys, because clearly they don't know what they're doing with it.
Peter, one skill that I don't think you need to teach is that we wear a navy blue jumper.
Absolutely.
Right? So last week we gave, what's his name, Darcy Moore, man of the match.
Absolutely.
This week we made Blakey man of the match.
Well, actually, it wasn't. It was Warner that actually got the medal.
I thought Chad Warner was unbelievably good for them.
But I mean, our kicks into the forward line, we're picking Harry or Charlie's opponent perfect. We put it straight to their chest.
Well, look, I've got some comments I'd like to share in relation to that. I think we've got to split them up, to be honest. It's obviously not working. So what they need to do is, in my opinion, is that they need to have, and this is going to sacrifice our goal kicker, but I'd put him behind the ball. I'd let him come forward in attack and either leave Harry one out and just see whether he's capable of doing it. If not, I'd sit him down because everyone's starting to get really, it's starting to wear thin. This thing of not being able to understand what his role is or what his job is to do is to kick bloody goals. He's supposed to be a Coleman medalist. It doesn't mean anything to me anyway. But, you can have one standout year and all of a sudden they give you a 10-year contract and the entitled keeps on rolling along without any consequences. And we're now at a stage where the consequences are starting to outweigh the fact that he should be in the side. And I've got some other comments in and around that. So, but yeah, I won't tie up.
Okay, so let's not talk. Before we do, I was going to say the one good thing was Jacob Wiedering actually showed a bit of form.
Well, as you know, I've been a massive critic of Jacob Wiedering this year because of his attention to detail. Although, be it that he screwed up a couple of times, even on Friday night with poor kicking. Which, I mean, is that a mental thing? Maybe. Is he starting to get under pressure? I'd say yes. And along with McGovern, again, I'm on that bandwagon again. But the thing that really troubles me is that we're supposed to be entrusting AFL experienced footballers with roles and with responsibilities in a tight situation in backline play, and yet neither of them can bloody well understand what that means. And as a result of that, we're making silly mistakes of which opposition sides are capitalising on, and it's becoming actually embarrassing. That's what I reckon anyway.
It is.
Brownie?
Sorry, go on.
No, go on, Joe. No, I won't interrupt. Go for it.
No, I was just about to say, look, we've got Steve sitting in the back, so I might bring Steve in. He might have a few words to say. And hi, Steve. So to our viewers, this is Steve Khatib.
How are you, Khatib? Good to see you, mate. I haven't seen you for years.
Good evening.
Well, it feels like years.
I had to throw in the golf reference for you, mate. Even though I'm a naga, not a golfer's arsehole, but anyway.
Just to inform everyone who's watching about yourself, Steve. Obviously, passionate Carlton supporter and someone who takes a deep interest in the club and how it's governed and how it's operating. But also, you've been up a couple of times for election. Unfortunately, you weren't successful on those occasions in getting voted onto the board, but obviously you've got quite some strong opinions about that side of the game and that side of our club. But you obviously keep a pretty close eye on the team and how it's performing. How did you summarise how we performed on Friday night and how we've gone so far this year?
Look, seriously, without drinking Peter Brown's bathwater or anything like that, literally everything that he said right across the last 4 or 5 or 6 weeks, even prior to the Adelaide game, I can't agree more with. It's really disappointing. There's a couple of points to make. Firstly, on the goal kicking, you'll see some players will kick right to left, others will kick a left to right. If you are a right to left shot, obviously you'll have to you will move out slightly to the right, and your leg will arc a little bit, and you'll curve it a little bit. But when we're talking about that, it'll only be slightly. If you look at Mackay, he was aiming out of bounds, 10 metres out of bounds on the full, and then having to curve his leg back. So the margin for error is way too much. Tom Hawkins is a classic. He's more left to right. So he'll almost aim at the left goal post, almost slightly kick it on the outside of his boot. And Brownie, please correct me on all of this from a technique perspective, but it's very similar to golf, and then it'll sort of curve slightly to the right. But again, if you get that too far out, or you're suddenly now having to overcompensate one way or another. We're only talking slight nuances here. You can't run perfectly straight, but each player will have their own slight curve. But when we look at the technique and it's been put under the microscope on TV, it's literally 25 metres to one side. Mackay is aiming. He's got to hook that back a long way.
Steve, the disappointing part about that is that you've got commentators which have been, top line forwards over the years. We've got other people that are in the media or have had Carlton experience, such as Favola and these types of guys, that have all suggested certain things that they can straighten him up with, and yet not one of the assistants or the coaching staff or in fact any of the club personnel have taken any heed of that. Now, we mentioned it last week about Favola. Now, he was straightened up by Ross Lyon, and maybe Brad Johnson's right. Maybe it's where he plants his foot, where he's facing his foot, as to where he's going to hit it. It's a bit like cricket. If you've got your foot facing out to mid-on or wherever it is, that's where you're going to play the shot. Well,
but Brandy, that's technique. Now, how many years has Mackay been with us? Is this his 7th season? 6th season?
8th.
8th. Okay. So this didn't just happen overnight.
Exactly.
No. Let's be honest. He started kicking around the corner. What was it? 4 years ago? Was that when it became trendy and he started using that as his out, as his sort of bailout?
Steve Johnson's got a lot to answer for, I can assure you, when it comes to this sort of thing, because not only is it affecting top-line AFL players and it's had an influence on them, but it's also filtering down through the junior ranks. Kids are doing this, in the warm-up. I've said this before on the podcast, but I've got grandchildren that do exactly the same thing. It's all very nice kicking around corners, but yet in a game when they've actually got to face it straight out in front. And ridiculously, I don't know whether you noticed this or not, but I think it was the game before Friday night. Yes, it was. It was the game before. They were doing a warm-up and Harry Mackay was standing right in front of goal. And there was no one on the mark. He had earphones on, of which he was
listening to music
on the warm-up with. And I thought to myself, hang on for a minute. He hasn't got 50,000 screaming people at him, calling him a wanker and goodness knows what else. And he hasn't got a bloke standing on the bloody mark giving him an absolute bath on, about, certain things in his anatomy or whatever. And as a result of that, he lines up and he finds himself in all sorts of trouble.
Yeah.
So boys, we can keep going over the same thing we've done for 3 or 4 weeks, right?
No. It's a waste of time.
It's a waste of time. Okay, so I thought Vince would be a good idea to bring Steve in because, Pete, we had this saying in Italian, and I'm sure they have it in English, that the fish rots from the head, right? So everyone's, and I read it on social media, don't drop this player, drop that player, sack Voss, do this. But we all know that the culture at the club has not been the same since Jack Elliott has left, right? And when they put in, I don't know what it was like when Stephen Kernahan was there. And I mean, to be honest, we haven't recovered from when Ian Collins dobbed us in for doing all that supposed under cheating, and we got all the draft picks sort of taken off us. When was that? About the year 2000?
End of 2002, 20 and a half years ago.
Yeah. And let's face it, we have been, and excuse my French, shit ever since, right? We probably deserved to win wooden spoons because we attracted rubbish players. So we brought Steve on because, look, a lot of people are saying sack the board, get rid of this guy, get rid of that guy, get rid of this guy, right? We all seem to know that there is a boys' club mentality there. So, Steve, why don't you tell us about your experiences in attempting to get even elected on the board and how the difficulties that you faced?
Well, firstly, Joe, I just want to say I really only ran for the board because no one else was. So it's wasn't about me. There's a lot better people that should be on the board. In fact, if anything, this was more of a test case, a pilot, if you like, to try and see what would happen. 2015 or 2014, through a lot of frustration, Vince will know all about this. Jump in, Vince, and correct me.
That's all right.
The club board and an independent nominations committee, essentially what that means is that you would need to be
endorsed,
vetted by the president and 2 lawyers that were employed by the club, or one accountant and a lawyer that were employed by the club. Essentially,
hardly what you'd call an independent nominations committee, is it?
Not at all.
When you've got the president of the football club as the chairman of it, and the club's accountant and the club's lawyer being the other two people on that so-called independent nominations committee. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah, so, look, it was very apparent to me that, without going into the whole long story of it all, that the club want people from their factions, their groups, to represent the interests of the benefactors that support the club. Now, completely understand that's how boards can work, but it's not exactly working very well at Carlton. As a result of that, they needed to be challenged. Now, Carlton has a couple of pretty big families. One, the Mathesons, who you would have heard speak in the paper recently. The other, the Pratts. So, if you look at the board themselves, they're chess pieces. The two families will have representatives that will hold a seat on the board and act upon their financial interests to protect and represent their financial interests on what's going on. So if another person comes, if one of those people come to their term of retirement, a new person coincidentally endorsed by those families will be put on the board. Now, why am I saying all this? What I'm trying to say is that at the end of the day, you may have 10 new board members or 8 new board members, but it's really the same people running the club. Now, let's go a step further. Let's say those two factions don't exactly see eye to eye on a lot of issues, potentially. What you're then going to have is disharmony. And often, what we just saw 2 weeks ago, you'll have that press release regarding, from Bruce Matheson himself, possibly because he's not happy with what the other side of the board's doing, possibly. So at the end of the day, these people need to represent the Carlton Football Club's best interests, not their business interests, not any other interest, but what's best for the club. And whether that means independent people need to be on the board, then that should be fine. At the moment, though, you're seeing the same people just basically shuffling the deck chairs, and we're getting the same result year after year after year. And what's their go-to? Sack someone, scapegoat someone, get rid of a coach, get rid of a football administrator, get rid of a CEO. But actually, they have subcommittees. They have subcommittees that they sit on. There's a football subcommittee. There's a finance one. There's marketing and sales, etc., etc. They're responsible for the strategy and ensuring that the people they employ do those jobs correctly. And currently, we're just seeing knee-jerk reaction, Band-Aid solution after Band-Aid solution. Sacking the coach isn't going to solve it. And then if you actually think of the football industry, the other 17 clubs, a lot of those people in that industry see this. They all speak amongst themselves, and they know Carlton's really not exactly a destination place to work or to come as a player. So then you're only really attracting people that are going there potentially for not necessarily the best reasons. So look, that's my high level take, Vince. Throw Peter, Joe, throw your inputs in, but at the end of it, no matter what happens, even if we win the wooden spoon, you'll never get rid of that. You never make that change. We really need to make that change, but at the end of the day, we're entrenched with that mindset at board level, which is creating those ripple down problems.
Tyler's just put that up pretty much, and because of these independent committees, it's almost impossible to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, what they do is talk people out of running. Actually, don't they, Vince?
Yeah, well, there's been a few people that have tried to nominate for a board position, and the first thing that they do is try and bully them and intimidate them into not standing and actually withdrawing their nomination. And they've actually been successful on quite a few occasions in achieving that end. The ones who have said, no, I'm still going to nominate and I'm still going to go up for election, regardless of what your independent nominations committee might say about me, and regardless of whether it endorses me or the director that's going up for re-election, I'm still going to go up. But then the next set of roadblocks comes along. And, if you want to nominate for a board position, you have to do it before the end of August. And then they go and hold the annual general meeting in February, 6 months later, with about 3 weeks to go until the start of the next season. So the appetite for change amongst the Carlton voting members is at its lowest ebb at that time of year. So it's a very strategic decision that they take to do this sort of thing. And it's all designed to give them the very best possible chance of retaining the power that they desire to keep, and to make it as difficult as possible for any aspiring board member to be successful in unseating one of their own.
Sorry, Peter, you were going to say something?
So, question. Yeah, you two guys, both you, Steve, and you, Vince, and I'm not sure about you, Joe. And as you know, I've never had anything to do with the board or anything to do with that. My comments in and around the actual playing group are more centred on what happens on match day and things.
Of course, I understand.
My question to you is this. If you have these factions within the organisation, what is it that they get out of it? Surely they're not getting paid for this. Surely they're not. Or are they using this as
not
a
directly
networking tool?
Not directly.
Hang on, Vince. Listen.
Yeah, sorry.
Or is it a networking tool that they use through their organisations to be able to use the Carlton name to be able to progress their own self-interest? Am I hearing that correctly between you two guys?
I'll let you answer that one, Steve. Go on.
It could be perceived that that's the case. It could be.
Okay. Then my question to you is based around this. And there was a comment that came up before, and I'm not sure who the gentleman was that did the comment. I actually read one of them that came up before. What about someone like a Mike Fitzpatrick and a Tom Elliott or someone like that could run in that there it is there. Sorry, it's Tyler that's just put that up. And we need a coteries led by big name like Mike Fitzpatrick and Tom Elliott to challenge. So, I mean, has there been advances or approaches made to these types of people which could perhaps put a different perspective on it? Obviously, from Mike Fitzpatrick's perspective, he's been a commissioner of the AFL and also a perfect captain for the side.
But Brandy, you're not coming into this given the keys to a Ferrari right now.
No,
you're inheriting something that is probably
a basket case. A basket case, Steve.
Well, I wouldn't say completely, but you're inheriting an 80-hour-a-week job. Now, why would they do it? I mean, look, if you think about it, it's a lot of work to actually fix it properly. And do they believe they can honestly fix it? That's
the other question I have. The other question I have, I'm going to throw it back at you, Brownie, because you asked the question about why do they want it? Well, what do you think? Why would you so tenaciously attempt to not only arrest control, but then entrench your power by way of making all of these changes, by way of introducing an independent nominations committee, by all of a sudden changing the date of the annual general meeting from December, which it was every year, to February? Why do you think they make all of these changes? Why are they so intent on maintaining power and control over the club? Why would they do it?
Sounds like
have you ever asked yourself that question? Why 18 months ago did they attempt to hoodwink the Carlton members into voting for a brand new constitution where hidden underneath all of the cloak that they used to sell it, underneath they never talked about the changes to the constitution which would have entrenched their power even more. such as changing the amount of signatures you need for an extraordinary general meeting from 100 voting members to 5% of the entire membership, which means somewhere between 4,500 and 5,000 signatures just to get a meeting of the members. Why do you think that they would have done that? Why are they so hell-bent on maintaining control of our club? Because they see it as their club, not our club. We're not members. We are customers. We're not valued other than for our money.
Okay.
They want to keep control of it because they gain a lot of other things by being part of that board. Yes, they're benefactors, but they also derive a lot of other benefits, contracts and all sorts of other things that the Carlton Football Club gives them by way of contractual arrangements with companies that they own and control.
You know, interesting. Yeah, Joe, sorry.
Go.
One of the things that you've got to be very careful of, and I'm only speaking from a player perspective, a long time ago, I admit that, is that you've got to be very careful that your politics doesn't overrun to your playing group and then have an effect on what happens with our members, etc., etc. So the voice of reason's got to come into this. Surely to goodness, like Tyler said, is there a possibility, Steve, you mentioned it, is there a possibility that these people could be paid in that role, or B, could they be appointed to that role and then have a representation from, the grassroots type people, such as yourself, Vince, and you, Steve, and these guys that are out there that have got the best interests of the club at heart?
Okay. I just want to stop you there for a minute because we're getting a few people saying, and one of them is very popular with the show, which is Gina Harris. So hi, Gina. She's saying, F me, it's the coaches, then the board. Well, Gina, the reason we're talking about the board is it's the board that appoints the coach, right?
That's right.
So if everyone wants to sack Voss, who's going to sack him? It's the board, and that's why we're talking about. Is Voss the right coach? Maybe he's not. What we're trying to get our point across, Gina, is that it is a poison chalice, right? You could put Jesus Christ in there, and if you've still got, I think someone listed them all before, if you've got all these clowns still up there, right? It's like trying to do the same. It's like just shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic. You're going to get the same result. So that's why we're talking about the board, Gina. Yes, we do. We all agree that it's coaching, it's the players, it's it's the recruitment, it's even the membership manager. I've been a member since I was. I don't know how old you are, Steve, but I'm 61. And when in the old days, we used to run up to the newspaper shop and you'd buy a membership ticket. It was a cardboard bit of paper, and you got it clipped every week, right? And I've got them at home going back to 1970. Okay? So what's that? That's 53 years. And to this day, I live in Bangkok. I pay $1,000 a year to go to 0 games, right? And do you think they can even get me on a mailing list? Every year I complain. You've missed me on the mailing list. Don't miss me when they want the money. It's time to pay, they're very quick. Right? Oh, Mr. Lutzer, we will be taking $973 out of your nominated bank account tomorrow. Thank you. Right? But then every year, I never get letters from the president. I never get any merchandise. I never get any updates. So, Gina, this is all the board. They appoint the manager. They appoint the direction of the company. They tell you who the coaches to put in. So that's why we're not going for the board, Jenna. We're not going after individuals.
Joe, I think it gets further. I would suggest that if you look at the players and let's look at some examples of how this manifests, right? So you look at some of those signings that are on 800K plus, they'd have to be ratified by the board.
By the board.
At that level. This is not just a renewal, right? Now, a lot of those signings, they were probably the fifth option. These fifth, sixth, seventh option. These players on big money because they couldn't get. Dylan Shield went to Noosa with Bruce Matheson on his plane. No, he went to Essendon. Couldn't get him. you go through the list of the players they tried to chase, and
the coaches,
because they had to have a big name to roll out, so the members would think next year things will be different. Instead of probably potentially saying, you know what, we don't need a boom recruit. We didn't get the player we wanted. Let's now go and spread that money across a more even playing group, as Brownie's mentioned in previous weeks, right? These are some of those examples. Sack the coach so that the supporters' attention is focused somewhere else. And now a new coach comes in, a shiny new coach, and it's all going to be different next year again. These are the sorts of decisions we're getting. It's not strategic. It's just knee-jerk, keep your power type of mindset, rather than what's our plan or blueprint, as they brought out from some consulting firm, right? Which changes every time.
Well, we saw what happened at Collingwood. Collingwood's a classic example. It was like the Eddie Maguire show, right? And members, after, I don't know how long Eddie was there, but I think it was about 20 years or something. After 20 years, the members got sick of it and said, well, hang on, he's dishing out the same crap every year, right? And they got someone to challenge, and then look at them now. They got a decent coach because they're run by people. People want to go there, right? It all comes down to destination. I reckon you could throw $1 million. Who's the best player in the competition? Jeremy Cameron, right? I reckon you could throw him a $2 million payroll. I don't reckon he'd come, because he knows, one, what a basket case the club is, and two, he's not going to play in any final. Pete, why do you play football? Yeah, money, but you want that premiership medal around your neck. Absolutely. You want to play in a successful team. You want to have fun. But the guys, they don't even look like they're having fun, our players. It looks like, do I have to do this again?
Yeah, look, I've mentioned this in the past that, the entitled group are ho-hum, bad luck next week, all of this sort of thing. And there was even footage of them at the bloody airport on the way home. I don't know whether you caught that or not, but there was some of the lesser experienced people or players that obviously came off the plane, and, there was cameras in their faces. And this is something that, it's changed a little bit since I played, obviously, because of social media. Obviously, the press are all over it, et cetera, et cetera. And there were some kids there that I thought, you know what? It's not a good look when you bloody were walking through an airport, you've just got bloody beaten, and you're laughing. It's a bit like the old story, isn't it? Laugh on the other side of the face when you're successful. Don't laugh bloody when you bloody will getting your ass kicked. So it's just not a good look. I'm not suggesting for a moment that people be miserable. All I'm saying is that there's horses for courses. If you want to have a laugh and a giggle, do it behind closed doors where no one else can bloody will see you, and particularly more so with your paying public, like the supporter group and things like that. And they see that sort of thing, and all they see is, it's just going to be more of the same.
Look, even when I played junior football, I was pissed off when we lost.
Absolutely.
Right? But I remember we'd go into the rooms and everyone would be sitting there like, no one was laughing, right? Coach wasn't laughing. He saw us laughing. What are you laughing at? Right? He said, I remember one day he said, what's the joke? I didn't get the joke. Right? We go, what? Well, why are you laughing? You should be hurt. I remember he said, you should be hurting. But do you remember
what Vince Lombardo said?
No.
Winning's not everything, it's everything.
Yeah.
The only thing.
Winning's not the
And realistically, Vince Lombardo took a side that was struggling and took them through to win the NFL final. So,
as you'd expect from someone with the initials VL.
Very good.
Thought I'd take the opportunity, seeing you were going to quote the great man himself, Vince Lombardo.
But even this week, we get Mark Pitternet signs a 4-year deal, right?
Yeah.
I don't have a problem that they sign him. I don't mind that they sign him, right? 4 years? I don't know.
Allegedly, though, they put out a story to say other clubs were interested in him.
Who?
And well, this is true. And
they wouldn't have been knocking the doors down, I can tell you. No.
Carlton's got the strongest PR department of any AFL club, and essentially that's the problem. They almost pump up everything too much, and then when it doesn't appear to be as good as what it was supposed to be, they then have to go into damage control. But look, Pitney was 4 years, and they said, the reason we did it was because we needed security in case De Koning went elsewhere and blah, blah, blah.
That's more like it. That's more like it. I think that they know that the chances of keeping De Koning are very slim. They decided to bring him back in this week to try and improve his trade value. I wouldn't be surprised if they just keep playing him every week from now on, whether he does anything or not. I didn't think he was that impressive on Friday night. He took one mark and kicked a nice goal and didn't do too much else.
Well, hang on. John said to me, coaches can't say things to players that's critical or demonstrative. They'll be in court for bullying.
He's not too far wrong in today's day and age. I mean, even Michael Voss, the way he conducted himself in the press conference after the game gave me the impression of a coach who's almost scared to criticise his players. He's looking for every potential positive to mention in the press conference, but will not hold them accountable for anything that they're not doing well. I mean, if he mentions what they're not doing well, he says, look, that's an area that they've got to get a bit better at. But he's very, very softly approached when it comes to criticising them.
I want to put up a tweet, a comment that I saw on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
There's a rumour going around that a certain Carlton player has complained to the football club about crowd behaviour. Apparently, he said some of the fans use bad language over the fence to players, right? And I thought, you have got to be kidding me. Now, I have since found out that is true. That one of our players, I'm not going to tell you where I got it, but I got a friend who works for a newspaper. The initials are HS, and he said that one of the Carlton players complained about the abuse that was being hurled over the fence after the game at them.
Get out of the kitchen.
Can you believe that?
Get out of the kitchen.
Can you believe that?
I find that unbelievable.
So what hope has the coach got of yelling at him? I'm surprised that when someone gets dropped that they don't take him to the equal opportunity board or something, claim,
unfair
racism you're picking on me.
Yeah, unfair dismissal.
Someone says has to have been McGovern.
Well,
But you're right, Steve. We sign all these players on huge contracts that obviously get ratified by the board, right?
Yep.
McGovern, done nothing. How long's he been there? 5 years. This is his final year. To the way he's playing,
how much would he be on?
Over 800 a year.
Yeah.
Well,
now, over 800 a year.
We're all experts in hindsight. Let's be honest. We're all experts in hindsight, but we keep making the same mistakes. So this is not just one-offs here.
But the question is, Steve, when they signed up Mitch McGovern, did Mitch McGovern come over to Carlton because he had great faith in the club and the vision of the club and all the rest of it, or did he come because he knew he was going to get paid more than double, if not triple, of what he's really worth? And that's the problem with Carlton. We need to somehow, just to attract any sort of player, offer them double or triple of what they're really worth. Jack Martin's another example. I know Adam Sard's a good player and he's probably been probably the better of the lot of them, but you can't tell me that 750 plus for a halfback flanker is good value. Chera is on 750 plus as well. So do these players really justify those sorts of salaries? I can't help but think that they come over for the contract and for the money, not because they have any great faith in the club or its vision or its ability to achieve success. I don't think success is high on their priority list, these players.
And here is the comment. It's not McGovern's fault they paid it. Exactly. Yeah. We're not blaming Mitch McGovern. We're not blaming Jack Martin or Zach Williams. Yeah. We're putting it back to the board, back to the coaching. I mean, surely.
And the list management, Joe.
Yeah. Who's our list managers? Brad Lloyd.
Nick Austin. Nick Austin's in charge of list management. Yeah.
But have they got their hands tied? Are they forced to take one of these named players because we've got to get a scalp? Or are they better just to pass up? Are they allowed to pass up on it? Or is the pressure too great from above down to say you must land a big fish?
I would say it's the latter. I think it's the latter, Steve. They're trying to protect their territory. You know that as well as us. That they
Joe, you know what it is? Do you know what it is, Joe? For 20 odd years, we have had this obsession with getting a Messiah. Whether that Messiah is the senior coach, whether that Messiah is a big name player, whether the Messiah is even a president, we have been obsessed with the Messiah mentality for far too long, and we continue to make big mistake after big mistake, and they're very, very costly every time we do that. And we've just got to get away from doing that. Look at Collingwood 2 years ago, Buckley gone. What did they do? They went through a process, they interviewed people, and they went for the best coach that gave them a chance of success, and that was a no-name in Craig McRae. Now look at Craig McRae today. Everyone loves him. What did Carlton do? We went for the big name with the triple premiership player, all of the rest of it, big name, marketable. Was he necessarily the best candidate for the job? My mail is that he wasn't. Okay? But nevertheless, what's been proven, a year and a half down the track, is that the same trend has happened. He's had his honeymoon period in the first half of a season. Then we've plateaued. Now we've gone downhill. We've only won 4.5 games out of our last 15. So 4.5 out of our last 15 games of football.
So it was Clarkson they couldn't get. Then
couldn't get him. He wouldn't come. Didn't matter how much we put on the checkbook.
Lyon, let's not go there. Everyone kind of knows what.
We stuffed that one up too. Yep.
Kingsley was named. But he was not marketable, not sellable.
Yeah.
And then Voss was the next option. Well, Voss was the next option after that.
Well, I've also got to say that one of the reasons I think they went for Voss is because the president put his foot in his mouth and suggested that we wanted a coach who'd had prior experience at senior coaching. Now, probably because we'd had two coaches that had since been sacked in David Teague and Brendan Bolton, who were first-time coaches. But does that mean that you all of a sudden rule out any brand new coach who'd never coached before at senior level? Didn't bother Collingwood, but we did. We were bothered by it. We wanted someone who'd had prior experience. Well, guess what? Since 2004, every single premiership coach, other than Mick Malthouse in 2020 when he coached Collingwood to a premiership, every single senior coach has coached at the first club that he coached at.
And
whether it was Mark Williams at Port Adelaide, right through to last year, Chris Scott at Geelong, that's the first club he's coached at. So why would you eliminate basically 90% of the field as a president by saying, no, we don't want anyone who's a novice coach. We want someone with prior experience.
And Vince, let me ask you a question, a loaded one. Who do we have sitting on our board that has extensive experience and has been involved in these processes? I'm talking global, no stone unturned, global search, best candidate, stop at nothing.
Yeah, David Campbell, recently re-elected board member David Campbell, whose swim lane, as they call it, is people and culture. And yet, when it came to nominating people on the committee to choose our senior coach, he didn't make the cut.
But he did choose the other three.
Yeah. So why be on the board? So why is he on the board? Tell me, why is he on the board? And why did they put him up for re-election if he wasn't good enough to sit on that committee? Is it just because he just ticks the boxes every time Luke Sayers says, David, you got to vote this way or you got to vote that way? I'll let you make up your own mind.
So question without notice, guys.
Yeah.
Who is in charge of the due diligence of obviously appointing either administrators, coaching staff, board members, or in fact people that are in amongst our football fraternity? Who's in charge of due diligence? Because you mentioned Pitnet before of getting a 4-year contract. We've got Harry Mackay that doesn't run out until 29. I mean, who's done the due diligence on these type of people to the point where they've given them the contracts that they have been afforded? And
well, the person that's meant to have the due diligence over that, you would think, would be the director in charge of football operations, and that's currently Greg Williams.
Oh, I've got the answer. It was this guy, Ronald McDonald.
Always can look forward to a good comment from Wayne Montgomery. Good to see you, Wayne.
But seriously, you know, I'm going to answer that, and I don't know the answer, but I think I can guess it.
Yeah,
these players are marketable. Harry, Charlie. Well, you saw all the comments. Charlie signed until 2030.
Patrick Cripps, Sam Walsh. Yeah.
When they put it out on social media, Pete, I don't know if you're on Facebook and all that. No. You want to see the comments. Oh, well done. Bagger's signed him up for the rest of his career. Going to be a one-club player. That's not the best for the club. No. Best for Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay and Patrick Cripps. Good on them for getting that, I say. Great managers, right? But, you know, you look at soccer players overseas, and Steve and Vince probably know a bit about this. They don't sign footballers to long-term contracts. About the only one you'll get is maybe Ronaldo or Messi, and they're the 1 in a million, right?
Yeah, they are. One in about 10 million, Joe.
But you don't see Chelsea and all these teams signing players for 4, 5, 6 years.
No.
They're all 2, 3 year contracts because they understand the game moves. These players, there's new players every year. Anyway,
well, have a look at the Fremantle Dockers of recent times. They've enjoyed quite a bit of success. They've signed one, which is Jackson, obviously from Melbourne. But apart from that, you know, there's a lot of kids out there that are running around.
A lot of organic growth.
And they're actually playing really good football just at present.
Yep.
There's a lot to be said for having homegrown talent, of which want to be there rather than because they're getting paid to be there.
Brownie, in your day, we used to cherry pick them from the waffle and sandful, but we did it right. We did it properly.
I've mentioned that before, Steve.
Yeah, but now we can't.
No,
because
there's
a thing called the draft.
I must admit, we're really poor at this, and this is something that's been my bugbear for a long time, and that is that I just don't think they get into the grassroots enough myself, and have a look to see what sort of talent's out and around in district leagues and opportunities out there for players. I know Harmsy, he's suggested some players for the club, and they've just boo-hooed them. I've done the same thing, and again boo-hooed them. And these kids could have come to them cheaply rather than through the, if you want to call it, the bloody exclusive schoolboy bloody private school system. You know, will there be another Paul Meldrum that walks in off the street and says, "I'd like a game of football"?
Yeah,
that'll never happen again. And yet, you know, he turned out to be a very serviceable player for the club. You know. And again, I get back to the point of the due diligence of doing their homework here. And just a little example of that, and I know I'm picking on Harry, but, I mean, you know, they signed him because he had one breakout year. Well, stuff me. All that's done is just put the spotlight on him, and as soon as the spotlight shone on him, he's failed. And he's all the clubs have worked him out, so he's easy to play against now.
Yeah. But the problem is, Brownie, that he's got a contract till 2029, and we're paying him about $900,000 to $1 million a year. So,
Vince, we're not paying someone some money because of that, and therefore it's a ripple effect. So if you look at we just had state budget. I won't talk about that with you, Vince, but
please don't.
You look at
the
haves and the have-nots, right? As about a big budget, you've got a salary cap, you've got a budget.
Yeah,
the top end of the town's doing pretty well at Carlton, but it narrows right down, doesn't it? When you get down to sort of, and then we talk depth. Well, no wonder.
Yeah.
Steve, read the comment. McKay, Kerner, Cripps, McGovern, Wiedering, Walsh, Cherissard, Williams. Close to 8 million of our 13 million cap. So the other 35 players divvy up 5 million. Well, McGovern will be off that list. Thank God.
Well, I mean, there you go. Zach Williams, there's another one. I mean, we've hardly seen him even get on the park. But, to be paying that guy...
He's done his ankle.
But, Joe, the point is, even if he was playing 800 to 900 for a halfback flanker, please.
They marketed him as a midfielder, though. They marketed him as
you can market him as a midfielder all you like, but if he hasn't got the engine and he hasn't got the tank to run all day as a midfielder, he's no midfielder.
Correct.
And he got found out in year one. When David Teague tried to play him where he was allegedly going to be playing and he couldn't hack it. Anyway,
because we tried to get a midfielder in that period and we couldn't get one.
And none of them would come to us. That's right.
Yep.
Vince.
Yep. So we tried to make a halfback flanker into a midfielder. Sorry, Joe.
You can polish a turd, but at the end of the day, it's still a turd.
Thanks for that.
That's okay. Anyway, Steve, thanks for joining us tonight. We got to move on. Thanks. We'll get you on probably next week because I'm sure we'll have another loss and Leo Sayers will come out and say...
Thanks you. I just want to say this is not about kicking the club because we lose, but the only time people are interested in about this stuff is when we are losing. So it's the only time you really talk about it, right? But the reality is, when you're winning, you should be focused on doing this stuff so that you have that longevity. So that's
sustained success, as they call it.
Yep.
Anyway, thanks, Steve, for coming along.
Thanks.
And your views, and hopefully one day we might even see you on the board.
No.
I don't think you'd want to get there, to be honest.
No.
All right,
not
mate.
Anymore.
See you soon.
Good on you, Steve.
Thanks for joining us, mate. Isn't it, guys? That's disappointing.
Thanks for joining us.
Now, and here's a tweet. This is Ramo. It just sums up. I can't help but think we have ourselves to blame for what's happening at our club. We've tolerated and accepted mediocrity for 2 decades and done nothing about it. We keep feeding them our hard-earned cash, buying memberships years after year, and they don't respect us. So, anyway.
Can I, Joe, just throw in something which I haven't even told you about yet? But one of the things,
hang on, it's not on the run sheet.
I know it's not on the run sheet, but I just want to read something that a particular Carlton supporter has written on this Facebook page. And the reason I want to read this out is because it's just so beautifully put, and I thought it was so entertaining and so funny in the way he wrote this piece. Because one of the things that we see in times like this when the club's not travelling well is that if people have an opinion that's not glowing about the players or the coaches or the board or the administration or whatever, and they start to criticise various people and aspects of the club, they get held down as being, quote, not true supporters. And I couldn't disagree more. I don't think that just because you have an opinion which is critical of certain aspects of the club, that doesn't make you a true supporter. In fact, you could even argue that you're more of a supporter because you think more critically about what's going on in the club and you don't just swallow everything that the club throws at you and their PR department tries to get you to believe. So his name is Stan Eliadis, and I hope he doesn't mind me reading this out. But
this was on Facebook, wasn't it?
This was on Facebook, and I just want to read it out to you because I found it really entertaining. Have a listen to this, Brownie. He said, well, here we go again. I hope those of you that haven't yet made the transition to being supporters of mediocrity and group hugs are starting to see the light. If you don't have expectations, you will not be disappointed. I think now is the appropriate time to change the name of our ground from Icon Park to Unicorn Park. We need to paint the walls enclosing our ground with a splash of pink and a splash of purple and pay some homeless, drug-affected graffiti artists to draw lots of blue bubbles, rainbows and daffodils on the walls and hire someone that makes statues to knock up some life-size unicorn statues and scatter these unicorn statues around the entire ground. But unicorn statues must be navy blue and white, of course. We need to create a happy and positive environment for our players and coaches where they feel comfort and shielded from the negative supporter base. I was one of those passionate and negative supporters, just like many of you. But I changed last week and crossed over to the Participation Awards warm and fuzzy side. Oh, and I'm so glad I did. Can't you all see what's really going on? Carlton is revolutionising the culture of football and the way the game is played. Try being a young man playing footy at a once famous club, his every move being watched by a 70,000 strong crowd and millions around Australia, waiting to abuse him and criticise him for his wayward kicking. Just because he's on a contract of about $800,000 a year has nothing to do with it. To the contrary, it puts this poor young player under even more pressure. What our players need right now is love, kindness, support, reassurance, and lots of hugs, fairy floss and popsicles. Take a leaf out of Voss's press conference. Voss is leading by example. He even made it public by stating he would go and give Big Harry a big hug as soon as he finished his press conference. There was nothing negative out of Voss's mouth. He just noted all the positives, unlike you negative supporters. And there were lots of positives to be seen, but only once you take that step and cross to the warm and fuzzy supporter side. Pito looked like a much happier player after having signed... Whoops, what have I done here? Just give me a sec. It's almost finished. Pito looked like a much happier player after having signed a new 4-year contract extension. TDK was back in the senior side with his mates and doing what he does best, which is basically nothing. But hey, remember, the New Look Footy Club and new age supporters, we only want to see frivolous participation. And that's exactly what we got from TDK and most of his friends on Friday night. That's what good, true, real Carlton supporters expect to see. If you're not one of us, make the change now. Footy and supporting the Blues was way too serious and nerve-wracking when the game was about winning. How much enjoyment or fun did any of us get out of winning over the past 23 years? Not much fun at all, was it? Just change your mind and your ungrateful attitude as supporters, I did, and start supporting our players and team for what really matters, the Carlton mantra. Start seeing the happiness, togetherness, the warmth and the love and very slow growth of our players and performances, just like our coach, Michael Voss. Yes, Voss had me sucked in as well when we signed him, a decorated champion player, triple premiership captain, all-Australian on numerous occasions and a Brownlow medalist. A player that played with hard-nosed edge, never took a sideways step and put his body on the line at every contest. I thought he would instill those traits into our players and that we would play that way. But no, Michael knew the game had changed at Carlton Footy Club as soon as he arrived. He bought into our club's mantra immediately. He is now leading us like he led the all-conquering Lions 20 years ago, but in a different way. A bit like a born-again Christian. It's not about winning, it's about participation and putting our arms around a group of young men that are under so much pressure. I don't think most supporters have been paying enough attention. There is an underlying common theme from our last 3 coaches. Bolton introduced the journey and a little green shoots. Not many realised that he was referring to marijuana. That was a crucial aspect on the journey he started to ensure the players felt relaxed and open-minded. Then Teague came along in his train, toot toot, and encouraged our players to have fun and taught them to believe in his visions of magical places where his innovative game plan would see the green shoots develop into buds, which created even more love and group hugs amongst our players. Then we got Voss. He understood immediately that we were on a journey that didn't have a destination. That's what's making it fun for so many of us. We have no clue where we will end up. At one stage, we thought we would contend for a premiership. Then we settled for top 4, but most of us thought top 8 after last year's heartbreaking miss. But Voss has taught the players to never expect that heartbreak and pain again. Let's not create that type of pressure for our supporters ever again. Voss has stated many times that he is happy with many aspects of our game after a loss, because when you're on a journey with no destination, there is no more pressure or expectation, no chance of failure. Boss is thinking of us, the supporters. It's obvious now for all to see that the players are buying into this narrative as well. Voss is always smiling after the match press conferences, and you know what? They say a smile is contagious. So please, fellow supporters, buy into these changes. You won't get upset again once you accept the journey. After all, it's only a game, isn't it? And we still have so many unicorns, fairies, elves that sprinkle stardust and popsicles to suck on and rainbows to chase for that elusive pot of gold. If you don't believe in pots of gold at the end of rainbows, then piss right off, go follow another team, because you're not a true Blues supporter.
Magnificent.
So Stan Eliadis, you're a genius. I couldn't have written anything close to
that. Is this true that Michael Voss said after the game that it's the best we've played all year?
Yeah.
He couldn't have said that.
Yeah,
he couldn't have.
There were aspects of the game that were the best we've had. And Wiedering even said, I think it might have been Wiedering who said the first half was probably the best first half we've had for the year.
Yeah.
I think Jacob had one of those press conferences at the airport or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, Stan's getting some support. Nick's on board.
Yeah, he's sold.
Tyler's on board.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sammy's
Sorry, that was a bit long. I know that was a bit long, but I just thought it was worth it.
No, well and truly.
Anyway, let's keep moving, Joe.
It was Vida's. It was Wiedering who said it's the best we've played all year. So,
Congratulations. Congratulations to that guy that wrote that. That is magnificent.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
I think that should be published.
By the way, Joe, we should also mention with our game, I don't think we did it because we were talking about other issues, but I think with the Sydney Carlton game, we should mention goal kickers for the game for us.
Did we have
two goals to Motlop, one to Curnow, in fact, 1 goal, 3. Cottrell kicked the goal, DeConning kicked the goal, and Sam Walsh kicked the goal, and that was it.
And there'll be, we'll get onto the game next week, but there'll be some forced changes. You know, Chera's been given a week for a sling tackle.
Yes, and I think you'll find that Ollie Hollins has injured his shoulder or collarbone. Nick Newman's done a hamstring. Nick Newman's done a hamstring.
And Cripps has got a screwed up ankle.
Yeah, he had it stepped on. I saw that at the end of the game. Yeah.
Anyway. All right, let's get to the votes for the game. I don't know why, but let's do it. Peter?
Yeah, I actually I text Vince after the game and said, how the bloody hell do you vote this?
Well, we've still got to give 3-2-1. It's a bit like the umpires. It can be a terrible game of football, and you might think that no one deserves a vote, but you still got to give your 3-2-1 for the Brownlow if you're an umpire. So
absolutely,
we're in that same position here. We're probably giving votes to players who still made mistakes, still made critical errors, and still, had areas of their game that you could criticise. But nevertheless, who were the 3 least worst players on the ground for Carlton?
Well, we've all got the same. It's just in different orders.
That's right. True. That's true.
Look, I gave 3 to Walsh. I thought Walsh's work around the ground wasn't brilliant, but it was admirable. I thought he still contributed on the day. My comments are going to be fairly short and sweet on this one. 2 votes to Doherty. He certainly does still straighten us up, even though he had a couple of clangers as well. But then that's like everybody else. And the one that I've been very, very critical of, as I mentioned before in the back line, was Wiedering. So I gave him 1 vote, only because of the work that he'd done back there. And that was by default because Young wasn't there and he would normally have taken those intercept marks. And a comment just quickly is I think that particularly more guys like Wiedering that's more experienced shouldn't be making the mistakes that they are making. And it's not something that you would expect from a player of the years of service that he's done to the club. So
number 1 draft pick.
Sorry?
Number 1 draft pick as well.
Oh, look, Walsh is number 1 draft pick. Bloody Wiedering's number 1. You go through the lineup and we still haven't gone anywhere. So Wiedering was 1 for mine.
Yeah. Vince, go.
Same three players. I thought Jacob Wiedering was a welcome return to form. Yes, he made a couple of kicking errors on occasions, but I thought he was the only player on the ground for Carlton that actually won against his opponent, which was Buddy Franklin, and he kept him goalless. And I thought he had a very good game. Thank goodness he's returned to form because we really, really need it. They dropped Lewis Young, which I questioned in favour of Mitch McGovern. I think you even gave Lewis Young a vote last week, Brownie, and they had to drop him. But anyway,
there's been a bit of scuttlebutt about that, Vince. Apparently, a few of our viewers have said that Wiedering and Young don't get on.
Yeah, I reckon I've heard the same thing.
Is that right? Okay. Well, that can't be real good for team harmony either. Anyway, I gave Wiedering. Well, maybe that's why Wiedering came into his own because he doesn't have Young to worry about. I don't know, but Wiedering I gave 3 votes to. Walsh I thought was a bit of a warrior all night. He tried his heart out. 31 possessions, kicked the goal, and I gave him 2 votes. And there was toss up for me between Sam Doherty, who had 25 possessions and included 7 tackles. The other one I was contemplating was Matthew Cottrell, who I thought battled manfully as well on his wing and kicked the nice goal in the first quarter to get us going. 23 possessions, but I just went in favour of Doherty. I thought he was a steadying hand, whether he was playing across the half-back line or pinch hitting up in the midfield. So he got my 1 vote.
Okay.
But I've got to say, when it comes to Brownlow voting later on in the year, I would be absolutely staggered if any of the umpires gave a Carlton player a vote. To me, it was Blakey, it was Lloyd,
Warner.
And it was Warner. Those 3 guys were just dominant.
Yeah.
And Vince, I've got to disagree with you. There's nothing like a good Barney between players. Just remember when Satantara helped Cameron Cloak in the arse. Right?
You reckon he kicked him in the arse? I reckon he went a bit further around the corner while Cameron Cloak was on the ground. So
anyway,
Anyway,
look, I've got the same 3 players: Doherty, Walsh, Wiedering. I'm not going to go through the reasons why.
No, that's fine.
Our leaderboard: Charlie Curnow still on top. I looked at the votes. Charlie's had like 3 perfect games, and so anyway. Doherty, Walsh, who hasn't even played every game, missed the first 4 weeks. Imagine if he'd have played the first 4 weeks. Chera, who I think has been the only player that has improved from last year. Then you got Cripps, who's who's one of the many players who has gone down from last year. Young, Hewitt, and Wiedering.
Can I just also mention, Joe, that in relation to Charlie Curnow, I actually probably would have given him a vote as well if it wasn't for his atrocious
kicking
disposal efficiency. I mean, 1 goal 3 had opportunities to kick for goal. They weren't that difficult. They were right in front, and he kept missing to the left on a couple of occasions. And some of those kicks, what you could only call Hollywood kicks into the forward line, piercing the ball low and straight into a Sydney Swans defender's arms. And I couldn't give him a vote on the basis of that.
No, me either.
I agree. I agree, Vince. I agree.
Yeah.
There are some people putting up some changes. We'll get to them in a minute. But as you all know, it is time for...
Beautiful kick from Brown. That's a magnificent kick. Look at that. He was inside the centre square when he kicked that for a goal.
So, Peter Brown, your brownie points this week goes to... I've got to get a drum roll.
Goes to Cottrell. Absolutely.
So,
Matthew's game early in the game I thought was good, particularly in that first quarter. I thought his ability to be able to win the ball and give us something which was enthusiastic was important. Sure, towards the end of the game he probably faded a little bit, but my brownie points go to Matthew.
Okay.
And good to see you spelling his name right this week, Joe.
I'll take that on enhancement. No one got a tip this week, so the leaderboard is still 6-5-4.
Hey, hang on. I'm up to 5.
Yeah, no. There's a protest. There's a protest.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
You told me last week, Vince.
I tipped Collingwood, and you didn't increase my score, Joe.
Okay.
We're stuck on. It's just alphabetic order from here on in. Okay,
so all three of us went for Carlton. All three of us went for Carlton against Sydney, thinking that we were all, going to turn our luck around, and we all lost.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
So this brings us next week, Friday night. Geez, we're lucky. Got another Friday night game. We play the out of form Demons. Watch Carlton run them into form, right, as we normally do.
That's what I was going to say.
Because that's what we're good at. Now,
oh dear.
Let me go. My friend Ernest, hello Ernest, has suggested there's changes afoot. Marchbank, Young, Fisher, Cowan, Dow, and O'Brien. Well, I can't agree with all of those. I don't think Fisher is an AFL standard. Lockie O'Brien didn't really do much. I think I'm not sure about Marchbank, how his fitness is. He's someone that we've missed. If you bring Marchbank and Young, are we too top heavy then?
I don't think Marchbank's playing. I don't think Marchbank's playing good enough in the twos to actually warrant it.
Not yet.
Young was definitely stiff, and Dowd. Well, the word around town is that he's going to St Kilda anyway. They reckon that Sauce has already got him just about signed, sealed, and delivered. And if not, I've just started a rumour. So but I think these changes are going to be forced. If it wasn't for the injuries that we sustained in Sydney, I think we would still be dished up the same crap that they've been doing on the selection committee. And Vince, you've made this comment before about the integrity of that, and it's been under question for some time. And quite frankly, if they don't actually look at it for what it is and really start to swing the axe, then it really shows to me that the integrity of the place is not there.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question, Brownie, before we go on, Joe?
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
People have been, we've seen comments everywhere about, some people are calling for the coach to be sacked now. Some people are saying, he should be sacked, at the end of the year if we don't make finals. Some people are saying, no, we should stick with him all the way through to the end of his contract. There's all sorts of opinions on the coach. Do you believe that at some point, if we don't perform to a certain level, that it really becomes an untenable position for Michael Voss to continue? And I think, can you describe to us what you believe would have to happen for him to be given the chop?
Well, I think Voss's own integrity would come into question if he didn't walk. To be honest with you, I think that if you're in that position, and it's like anything else, if you're in business and if you've got a manager that's not doing the job correctly, the manager either walks or he bloody well gets back, one of the two. Now, to keep your integrity in place, you'd want to be the first one to get up and resign rather than be in a situation where you get thrown out, because that doesn't look so great on your resume. I said last week, Vince, that I don't believe we should be throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I think we've just surrounded him with the wrong people. I think that underneath him, these are the people that are supposed to make him look good. Whilst he's the figurehead and everything like that, these people are supposed to have all of the tools that they can use to be able to be successful as a club. And I just don't think that the people underneath him are up to it.
Doesn't he select them, though?
Sorry?
Doesn't he select his assistants and people under him?
I would say that he'd have an input into it, but from what I've heard tonight, I would suspect that goes through a committee of selection, although be it that I question who's doing the due diligence on that. But I think that, whilst Voss might have a say in it, I don't think he's got the final say, to be honest with you.
That's interesting, because
Joe, I suspect strongly that Michael Voss, when he interviewed for the job, didn't have either the confidence or the credibility to be able to insist on bringing over his own team of people. And he, to a large extent, would have had to have accepted whoever the club gave him as an assistant, whether it be a forward line coach, a back line coach, a midfield coach, stoppages coach, etc., etc., etc. We've got that many of them. There's a team of 10. I don't think that they're Michael Voss's own people. I've seen other coaches who have had lots of credibility wherever they've gone insist on having their own team, whether it's Lee Matthews that went to Brisbane and won 3 flags, whether it was Mick Malthouse who brought his own people when he went to Collingwood. So I think you'll find that to a large extent he's been given the assistance that he's been given and he's had to work with them whether he liked them or not. I don't know whether it's working. I don't know whether there's any synergy there. I don't know whether there's any chemistry between them. I really have no idea. We're not privy to any of that information.
Interestingly enough, Vince, on some of the broadcasts that have shown Voss in the coach's box and with his assistants being close handy, there just doesn't seem to be the interaction that I think that there should be, particularly more so with changes that have to be made immediately rather than reactively, So I just don't see that synergy and I don't see that connection there.
I'm with you, Brownie. I agree. And sometimes pictures can tell 1,000 words, and you get those images of the coach's box and you just don't see and feel that there's a really good group working hand in hand together.
It's almost like Voss is isolated, and it's almost like they've gone, "Oh, well, it's your hot potato. You can have it. I'm not interested in it."
Yeah. Well, I've seen over the years, Clarkson's had his own assistants. A lot of those have gone on to become senior coaches. Damien Hardwick was one of those. He went on to become very successful, winning three premierships in 4 years at Richmond. He had his own team. A lot of those have now gone on to coach. So, I just don't get that same vibe about Michael Voss. I just personally don't get that same vibe. But anyway.
Yeah.
As Dennis Denuto said in that movie, The Castle, Joe,
it's the vibe.
It's just the vibe of it all.
It's Marbo. It's the vibe. But we all agree there's going to be some changes this week, not because of form, but because of injury. And I think
Force
Ernest
changes,
just pointed out. Yeah, I think
I made the point before, guys. Just quickly, is that I think the two tools have got to be split up now. It's obviously not working. I think something's got to be done. And I think we've got to sacrifice Charlie to have him further up the ground and then use Mackay closer to goal. If that doesn't work, then I would sit Mackay down and bring Charlie back to goal scoring opportunities. So it's clearly not working. Did you see the Geelong game? By any chance? Did you see any of that?
Yeah, I watched it.
They started off with 3 tools. They had Cameron,
Hawkins,
and Degoning, and it failed. It failed dismally, and that's what I reckon is happening with these two. They're not. The synergy is not there. Yes, we saw glimpses of it. Has that improved? No, it's gone backwards. And as a result of that, we're just not getting the opportunities that we need.
I'll tell you what, Brownie, even in defence, I think there was a ball that went into our defensive area and 2 of our players both went up at the same time. I think it might have been
McGovern and
McGovern and Wiedering, was it? And they got in each other's way and both ended up spoiling each other and the ball went back to Sydney.
Too many balls in the paddock.
There was another example of McGovern was the ball had come over the wing and it was heading towards the half forward line, and I think it was McGovern, and I'm not sure who it was that came out and McGovern gave away a free kick by or anything
that
like that.
Is laziness.
Laziness. Pure
That's
laziness.
Lazy football.
Absolutely.
Even Jason Dunstall on Fox Footy pointed that out and just shook his head. I mean, Jason Dunstall, one of the best full forwards of all time. And, funnily enough, he was actually a Carlton supporter as a kid back in Queensland. So he keeps a bit of an interest in Carlton, and he just shakes his head at our club at the moment.
Yeah. I'm going to put a comment up. The season is over. With the extra game, you'll need 13 wins, so we need to win 9 next time. I don't know if the season's over because some of the results may go our way. You saw them today. We're not going to put it this way. We're not going to challenge for the grand final. I think a lot of our supporters and media overrate our list, right? And even when they're playing at their best, you know, who's our full back? Is it Wiedering or is he centre half back? I mean, who?
Joe,
before you
just, can I just suggest here that before we just accept that the performances that we've had means that all of a sudden our list is overrated, I don't necessarily subscribe to that, because
I do.
No, and I say that because I'm not convinced that this group of players is playing at its optimum. I mean, the job of the coach and his coaching team is to get the best out of the playing group. And I'm not convinced that they are doing that. Look at what Ross Lyon's done at St Kilda. A really capable, switched-on coach who's got a clear game plan, who can give clear instruction to players, give them a simple role to play. Look at what Liam Stock has done at St Kilda this year. Look at what Brad Scott's done at Essendon with players like Will Setterfield. I'm just not sure that Michael Voss and his coaching team are actually getting the best out of our playing group. I think we could very well get that team to play one heck of a lot better. As we saw in the first half of last year, they played a lot better football. Look, I'm not saying that they're not somewhat overrated, but I don't believe that they are a bottom 5, bottom 6 team.
Yeah, but take Harry for example. Michael Voss doesn't kick. That's Harry, right? And no amount what you say to him, he just looks like.
Yeah, but I asked Brownie this question earlier. I said, whose fault is it with all of these skill errors? And he said it's coaching. It's coaching. It's got to be back to the coaching. They've got to straighten these guys up. They've got to identify that these problems exist. They've got to sit down with them and work on their kicking skills if that's a problem. How can you just let Harry continue week after week after week kicking like that? And all that Michael Voss says in his press conference is, we're going to put our arms around him and keep supporting him. Mate, get out there on the park and practice kicking. That's what Brendan Favola offered to do, and they knocked him back. I don't know. I shake my head. I really do.
Are we rewarding bad behaviour?
I think we are.
Yeah, but we are.
As usual, this is what we say about the culture of the club, Joe, that we have been a mediocre at best outfit for over 20 years. We accept mediocrity. We accept failure. And we don't seem to... We have more of a pot shot at people who identify these things and call them, disloyal supporters, rather than actually looking at what we're doing at the club to change the culture so that we have a winning culture, so that there is a peer pressure amongst the players to actually get better and to deliver. There is no peer pressure to deliver. We seem to accept the one excuse after another, and the messages coming out of the press conferences, in my opinion, the coach's press conference, are deplorable.
Yeah, exactly. But there's no
I think at some point, if we continue to play the way we've been playing and keep racking up the losses one after the other, I think that Luke Sayers is not going to have too much option but to renew some faith and hope in the Carlton faithful by making yet another change. Not to say that he or his board will ever accept responsibility. That's just way too much to expect of them. But he'll certainly, if he has to, he'll make another scapegoat out of yet another senior coach, and he'll look for another one, and he'll go and approach Damien Hardwick, or he'll approach Ken Hinkley or someone else. Why? Because we need to sell hope yet again.
Do you think this is true? I hope I'm wrong. Our players are doing this on purpose to get rid of the coach.
That's possible. That's possible, Peter V. And don't kid yourself. Players in the past have done exactly that, in my view.
Or is Voss being controlled by up above? Who knows?
In what way does? Well, I'm not sure, Jimmy, what you mean by that. I think, is he saying in his press conferences that he's being told what to say by the PR department? Well, you know what? If I was being controlled like that, I wouldn't take the job.
Yeah, I agree.
If our PR department is going to start muzzling you as a senior coach into not criticising the team or the players and keeping everything on this nice, sweet, don't worry, everyone, everything's going well. Nah, rubbish. Okay. We're not fools, and it's about time they stop treating us like fools.
Okay. All right. Well, look, we've been at this for 2 hours, so I guess we'll let Peter go.
An hour
before
45,
we do, Peter. Before we do, Peter.
Yes.
Before we do, your tip for next week, and I'm going to start with Melbourne by how much?
I said I actually text, I think, Vince, and I said to him that I would go Melbourne by 30 points. And,
yes, you did.
And Vince came back with 21.
Yes.
I just throw a caution in there, though. Melbourne isn't travelling all that great either, and it's been proven by some of the results on the weekend that in any given day, something can happen.
Yes.
And as a result of that, I still say that Melbourne will win the game by 30 points. I'll put a question mark over the top of that.
Vince?
Well, I'm going to also qualify everything by saying Melbourne only just failed by 4 points to beat Port Adelaide, who are flying on their home deck last week. And they've gotten knocked off by 7 points by an emerging side in Fremantle, who are playing at the top of their game. Fremantle, in fact, has knocked off both of last year's grand finalists in Sydney and Geelong in consecutive weeks, and now knocked over another top 4 team in Melbourne. So don't be surprised if Freo finish in the top 8 and go quite deep into the finals. I think Melbourne aren't travelling at their best. That's true, but I still think that they're going to be way too good for us. And with all the injuries we've got, I can't see us winning the game. So Melbourne by 21, and that's being conservative.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to
one last comment, Joe, if I may, please.
You may.
I'm going to go throw Cottrell in the middle.
Probably should. Well, I'm going to go against you too. I'm going to pick Carlton to win. Right?
Good.
Only because
Brownie, you and I are going to catch up on him by one.
Because I'm one ahead and I want to widen the gap. And next week, when we win, I'm going to sit here and go, I told you both so. Okay? So that's
all right.
I was going to say Carlton by 60 points, but I haven't been smoking weed. No, I think Melbourne will win, but I'm going to pick Carlton. I can't tip against us. That's why I never win footy tipping competitions.
Yep.
For the last 20 years. When Carlton were good, when Peter was playing, I could win every week because I knew that we'd have this third quarter. I've heard a rumour that Alex Marcoux, Jimmy, what's happened to Vince?
I don't know.
Sorry? What happened there? Sorry.
You went blank. I've heard I think Alex Marcoux, Jimmy Buckley, Ange Christou, Kuda, they're all making a return this week. So hang on, my mate Ernest has said I need to stop taking drugs. I haven't taken any. Joe, I hope you're right. And
we all hope you're right, Joe. But the reality is, if we're going to be sensible about it and realistic about it,
well, I'm not going to be sensible.
We are just playing so poorly at the moment. We are playing like a bottom 6 side.
You two can be sensible. I'll be right. Okay.
All right. On that note, in other words, Peter and I will be realistic, and you can be optimistic and in dreamland. So anyway,
hang on. It
says for your life.
Next it says La La Land. But anyway,
go off and have your popsicle with your unicorn mates.
Yeah.
You mean you aren't coming?
Go and fly over some rainbows in your unicorns. That's all right.
Ladies and gentlemen, all 93 of you watching, right? I want it said at 6:18 here in Bangkok. At 9:18 on the 28th of May, I predicted that Carlton would beat Melbourne, right? I said it here. I'll stand by my decision.
All right, let's see what happens this time next week when we review the game.
On that note, if you don't see me next week, you know that I'm too embarrassed. Pete, thank you very much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And we look forward to hearing from you next week.
Thanks, Joseph. Thanks, Vince. Thanks to our listeners. Thank you.
See you, mate. See ya. You too.
I've got to get Brownie to stop saying. I've got to get Brownie to stop saying listeners because I think they're actually viewers.
Viewers. Do you know something? You two are the popular front of Judea.
No, we're not with the Judean people's front.
No, they're over there. Anyway,
that's it.
Anyway, I hope I'm right. I think I'm right. Anyway,
we'll see. We've
got to thank Peter. And now we're getting into the home straight. It's time for a bit of frivolity. It's time for
Big Vincenzo's Omen Bet of the Week.
Omen Bet. And Vince, last week at Pinjarra, you picked Poseidon.
And we sunk. And we sunk with that. We sunk with that bet.
Oh, no, I spelled it right. And we sunk to the bottom with it, right?
Yes, we did. But I'll tell you what, if you looked at the replay of the race, it was a very, very close go between the top 4 horses, in fact. And
you could throw a blanket across
unlucky. Them. Yeah, you were a bit unlucky to finish third. But nevertheless, whether it's by a short half head or by 100 lengths, if you don't win, you don't win.
Yeah, I'll quote the commentator. You can throw a blanket across the front of a lot of them, but
that's it.
We lost in the photo. Vince, your Omen Bet of the week. I had to look twice when you gave it to me, right?
Yeah.
You hang on. You have gone to the Sweden harness racing.
Yes. There's a big reason for this. And I'm sure harness racing followers that are watching us will know exactly what I'm talking about. This is the world's biggest trotting race, okay?
Oh, okay.
This is known as the Elite Lopp, and it's held over there in Sweden every year at the Solvalla Raceway. And we have a representative this year from Australia with Greg Sugars, one of our leading drivers and trainers here in Victoria, along with his wife, Jess Tubbs. She's officially listed as the trainer. He's going to be driving the horse. Just Believe, who won the Inter-Dominion Trotting Grand Final here back in February, has been sent over. And look, he's going to be an outsider in this particular heat. There are 2 heats, of which there are 8 horses in each heat. The top 4 runners in each heat will go through to the final a couple of hours later. So what we're going to do is back our Australian horse, Just Believe.
At 61 to 1.
Exactly. We're only going to put $2.50 each way on him, though, because we haven't got that much money to play with. Yes, go for it.
I want to ask a question. How do you bet on Sweden races?
Well,
through the TAB?
Through the TAB or through one of the betting agencies if you've got an account. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Oh, okay.
What I've just given you there is off a TAB account. So
there you go.
So you can bet fixed odds. In fact, I can tell you, Joe, that Just Believe has come in since I sent you that. It probably says $61 on your screen. It's down into $51 now. So it's into it's into $51 for the win and $9 for the place on the fixed odds.
I hope did you back at top fluck? Or starting price?
No, look, we're just going to put a little $2.50 each way on it, and hope for the best that he can at least run a place. Well, I'd love to see him run at least in the top 4 because I think it would be tremendous to have an Australian horse in the final. So we'll see how they go. He's a great horse, but he's up against the world's best here at Solvalla Paceway in Sweden. And if you've got a subscription to Foxtel or to Sky Channel, you can watch this race. It's just before 11:30 this evening. So make sure you get it. It's in fact 11:28 p.m. this evening. The race is only over 1,609 metres, so it's a bit of a sprint. He's not exactly drawn all that well, out in 7. So he's out second from the outside of that front row. So he's going to have to try and slot in somewhere and come at them towards the end.
I can't believe you've only put $2.50. You know my motto.
Well, Joe, we're down to what, $40? We're down to our starting amount. So
we're back
on a 60 to 1 shot. If we win, we'll have about $150 more to play with.
But if we had $10 each way, we'd have $500.
Yeah, and if he doesn't even come in the first 3, we're back to $20.
So we're back to even.
I'm being a little conservative. Anyway.
Okay, well, it's time for us to leave. So I'm I can hear all the people going, oh, like on the Porky Pig show, when everyone gets depressed. So look, we hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. We had our special guest as usual, Peter Brown. We asked Steve to come on.
It was interesting having Steve on tonight. I think it was a good initiative because, as you said, we can pull apart the game yet again. We're probably saying similar things week after week at the moment. But I think you were right, Joe, that we should really be looking at where are the real problems? Where are the real issues at our club, and where do we need to address them? And I think it's clear from our discussion tonight that our issues stem a lot further up than just the coaching staff and the playing group. I think we've got to take steps to change the culture, and to change the culture, you've really got to make things change at the top. But anyway, it'll remain to be seen whether that happens.
So listen, just before I do go, let me promote the shows that we're affiliated with. Yep. Monday night at 7 p.m. on the Blue Abroad channel, you've got Blue Abroad with Terry Degani, and I think Pommy usually joins him on the Monday. A few other guests.
Or Paul Sebastiani, usually.
Well, Paul's in England, isn't he? No, he still can come in. Tuesday night, you got the Jumper Punch with Rocco. I don't know who's going to help him this week.
I can tell you that Rocco this week, who went up to Sydney to watch the game between Sydney and Carlton with his son Dylan. In fact, he will be on with his son Dylan this week, as well as Jad Jahari, one of the regular contributors on the Blue Abroad channel, who you'll probably see most weeks on fan cams and that sort of thing. So Jad will be on the couch with Rocco and his son Dylan this week.
Fantastic. Then we move to Wednesday. We've got the Forever Rivals, which is on the Jumper Punch channel. So don't forget, the Jumper Punch is actually on the Blue Abroad channel. It's a bit confusing, but
the Jumper Punch show, yes.
Yeah. And then on Wednesday, we've got Forever Rivals, Rocco and the other boys, Manny. I forget their other
Mark
names.
and Quinn. Yeah, Mark is the Essendon man. Quinn is the Richmond man.
That's
and
right.
They have some terrific banter between the four of them. It's really good entertainment every week. Yep.
And then after them is Legends of the Jumper Punch at 8 o'clock
yes,
on the Sun
indeed.
channel.
And I can tell you that this week's champion Carlton player who we interviewed, legend of the Jumper Punch this week, is the great Mill Hanna, the Cranium. So we interviewed Mill over at Ange Christou's restaurant North Seafood Bar and Grill. And it was a great chat that we had with Mill Hanna about his playing career. What a fantastic guy he is.
And then, of course, next Sunday at the new time of 7:30, you've got yours truly and Vince on Blue Sunday. So just quickly going through that. On Monday on Blue Abroad channel, you've got the Blue Abroad show at 7 p.m. On Tuesday on the Blue Abroad channel, you have the Jumper Punch show at 7 p.m. On Wednesday, on the Jumper Punch channel, you have Forever Rivals, followed by Legends of the Jumper Punch, also on the Jumper Punch channel. And you've got Blue Sunday every Sunday night at 7:30. So on that, I'd like to thank Peter, Steve, especially like to thank my co-host Vince. And we'd like you all to keep supporting and subscribe to our show. I've changed the name of our Facebook group to Blue Sunday. So please like, subscribe, Blue Abroad, Jumper Punch, Blue Sunday. Remember, subscription costs $0. All right. And so like and share. We will see everybody next Sunday night. So until then, on behalf of my co-host, Mr. Vince Lochisano, and myself, this is me saying good night and see you all next.